We'll go to the next question, which is coming from one devotee by the name of Akinchana Krishna Prabhu, who's in Dubai. Let's see. Yes. Dear Maharaj, as it can be seen from current situation, the need for a more localized and land-based lifestyle. Many devotees may know this or may know that this is the only solution. However, may not be able to implement this due to various reasons. Could you kindly advise on a few guidelines for devotees considering to take this step and make this transition? Guidelines relating to what all might be required or what all should one plan for. For example, a certain amount of savings may be required, some land, children's education, etc. Maybe more of a handbook of guidelines for devotees planning to transition, as many, including myself, worry about the uncertainties surrounding leaving city congregations for a village-based setting. Very appropriate question, especially in our present global crisis situation that we are finding ourselves in. Salaries of people working in the cities is being reduced by large percentage. People are losing their jobs. Srila Prabhupada warned about this many years ago, indicating that actually this whole industrialized civilization, etc., is putting us in jeopardy, in danger, being unstable, unreliable. So the question here, and devotees have been discussing this point for a number of years. Some devotees have taken measures in that respect. There are various articles and PowerPoints that have been made over the years to give various information to devotees how to make this kind of transition. First of all, we should know that one of the long-term objectives of the Krishna consciousness movement is to bring people back to this more natural lifestyle, what we call agrarian lifestyle. We've mentioned on a number of occasions that, yes, actually one time I remember, sometime last year, writing a whole, we could say, step-by-step procedure. How, for example, a group of 10 families or 10 devotees can come together, discuss this very point about relocating in the village, in a village setting, and plan in such a way that at least 2 families initially, one family is not sufficient, 2 families should be ready to, should prepare themselves to relocate, while other families within that group, naturally this will take place only after such devotees have discussed and developed a very sound relationship of trust. And so two families can relocate with knowing that there are 8 families who are still in the city and who can help me out, with the idea that others gradually can be making this transition. We have yet to develop, unfortunately, within our ISKCON society such kind of strategy. And unfortunately, many devotees don't believe that it is needed or necessary. I am a strong believer in the fact that this is necessary. This whole kind of global crisis that we were seeing is giving us, should be giving us, some very clear insights regarding this. And if we simply hear on a regular basis, which most of us are not sufficiently doing, if we sufficiently hear Srila Prabhupada's purports and the very text, just like the one we read a little earlier, Sarva Kama Dugamahi, all of one's necessities come from the land. Our necessities for clothing, our necessities for eating, our necessities for construction, shelter, and our necessities for medicine. And that is why in our ministry we have, since about 2 years now, been promoting what we call traditional technologies. So devotees need to come together. We are again and again reminding devotees, inviting devotees, urging devotees, pleading to devotees to actually discuss these points, which are mentioned directly in Srila Prabhupada's books. And in this way, that is the beginning step for devotees to come together and start planning in a very realistic way. A number of devotees have already done this. There are families who are presently, since a number of years, living in a village or living in the country, and they have taken gradually these steps by discussing and by planning. There are many issues involved, of course, land, locating land, of course, in a place like India, where there are many families who have ancestral property at times, or as we mentioned the other day as well, establishing contact or preaching in some villages, convincing people who are in charge of such villages how this is very much desirable, that we have people in that village take up this kind of more natural lifestyle in terms of following the prescribed methods of simply learning to be satisfied with our basic necessities. Most of us have become, accustomed and also, I would say, attached to a kind of standard of living which for many of us is not at all essential. We are living a standard of life which is far superior than what is actually needed. So there's, of course, many things to be said in that respect. I would encourage any devotee who is seriously considering this kind of change or move to be in contact with a number of our devotees, for example, within the ministry, or to visit, for example. This is something also very important that Prabhupada also stressed. One can visit some of these communities, whether it's here in India or in other countries, where there are devotees who have been living for many years, who are convinced. I have mentioned on a number of occasions about my being connected with a community in Western Canada called Sharanagati village. Not everyone in the village, or who's living there is necessarily, although maybe living there, involved in this whole aspect. There are many factors involved. Many devotees sometimes, being elderly, they cannot be active in working the land or producing their food. So there are many different situations, but I know for a fact, because I'm in contact with them, working very closely with them, there's a core group of devotees, and there are such core group of devotees in practically, I'm sure, every community, who are very fixed on this whole recommended lifestyle of depending on the land, depending on the natural resources of the land, and who are doing physical work in terms of every spring. Now we are beginning month of April. Springtime is upon us, and there are so many preparations even before spring. People who are connected with the land, they start growing seeds indoors, for example. So many, by coming in contact and by visiting such places, one can learn how this is possible. And because we're talking about communities here, a village is a community of devotees, therefore one needs to connect with like-minded devotees and needs to work in that direction. Again, and I'll just close on this point here, reading on a regular basis are speaking about varnasrama and having regular classes. And that's one of the reasons we are also, I mentioned yesterday, for those who might have missed it, but we're hoping that within 2 weeks we will have a virtual global Varnashram college in operation. I already have very positive, favorable responses from over 20 devotees, all of whom are very qualified in various fields of knowledge. And just today I set up a group. We have 4 webmasters, 2 of them here in India, 1 in Canada, 1 in Indonesia, who might be stuck in Japan right now, but who have been active in maintaining some of the websites that we have for our ministry and other websites as well. Visiting these websites, getting information, and visiting physically these places is most important, and taking some of the courses that we will be offering very soon is also an important way to prepare individuals to make this kind of transition. Not that everyone, I'll just close by reminding everyone something that is clearly there in Srila Prabhupada's writing. Our primary area of preaching, and this is how Srila Prabhupada started, by going to New York City. Our preaching basis is meant to be in the cities. Of course, we can preach, and we should preach everywhere. But our living basis should be in the country. I've mentioned this a number of times. Preaching basis in the cities, in the urban areas, where there's a lot of population, where there's a lot of misdirected, misinformed population. And our living basis so that we can raise our children in a more sattvic atmosphere, where they can be in contact with the land, where they can be in contact with cows, and with these basic principles that we hear about constantly in the Bhagavatam. Will be very helpful. Next question.